Good afternoon. My name is Simon Vogel, and today we're going to be talking about heart disease. To increase prevention of heart disease, everyone should be educated on what heart disease actually is. Heart disease is serious, it's deadly. Most importantly, heart disease is preventable. According to the CDC, there are 600,000 men and women that die every single year from this serious illness. Today we're going to talk about a few things, but to preview what we're going to be speaking about, we're going to go over the definition of heart disease. We're going to talk about the incidence of heart disease in the United States. We're going to talk about how heart disease affects the body, what some of the risk factors are associated with heart disease, and then how we can actually prevent heart disease ourselves. Heart disease is such a common occurrence in the United States. You and I are most likely to be affected by it at some point in our life. Because there is a lot of confusion about what heart disease is, we're going to kind of start talking about the definition of heart disease. A world-renowned hospital system, Mayo Clinic, uses the term heart disease as a broad term to talk about several different conditions. We start with coronary artery disease. You have heart rhythm and arrhythmia problems. You have heart infections, and then obviously birth defects called congenital heart conditions. You can also have diseases of the actual blood vessels themselves. Now that I've kind of given you an understanding or the dictionary definition of what heart disease is, we understand that it's a chronic or a long-term issue, or it can be an acute, short-term issue. But either way, we want to know what's going on in the United States with heart disease. The ill effects of heart disease are seen every day around the United States. There are 715,000 cases of heart attacks or called in 911 emergency calls for heart attacks every single year. If you work this out, it's almost every 40 seconds there is a death from heart disease. It's serious, it's alarming, and it's a scary fact, when you really think about the numbers. According to the Center for Disease Control, heart disease costs the United States over $110 billion a year in services, medications, and lost productivity at your jobs. That's just because of heart disease. We understand that heart disease is a killer. There is no doubt about that. I don't think you'll get any arguments. But how does the heart disease work on our body? Heart disease attacks us in several different ways. The most common way is through the buildup of plaque. Plaque is a fatty-like substance or tissue that's in our blood vessels, and what it does is it forms a clot. It decreases the blood flow to our heart, causing tissue ischemia or lack of oxygen in blood to the heart, which ultimately causes death to our heart because it is a muscle. Imagine a straw, and you wedge a piece of paper in a straw, and you try to suck water through it. It's not going to work. Eventually, the clot's going to bust loose and make a way into the heart and cause issues. It's the same thing for blood clots like the plaque and the fatty tissue. Another common cause of heart disease is through irregular rhythms called cardiac dysrhythmias. Damage to the heart is not initially caused by plaque, but the fact that our heart has its own unique ability to beat on its own. It's which this automaticity generates its own electrical impulses to beat. The heart disease affects it in a way that it doesn't allow those electrical pathways to work properly, and it's no longer able to maintain its own beat. Both of these conditions are definitely serious, and we understand what's happening inside the body. But how do we play a role in the incidence of heart disease in the United States? At risk and American are two terms that go hand in hand. We eat, we drink, we eat some more, we smoke. Overweight and obese people lead the charge with heart disease in the United States. On top of the overweight and obese people, diabetes is a growing problem in the United States, and it often goes uncontrolled. But physical condition isn't the only high-risk behavior for heart disease. Three that we want to talk about is smoking, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. They are our three main risk factors. And according to the Center for Disease Control, 49% of Americans suffer from at least one of these issues, either high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or they smoke. Risk factors exist everywhere in our lives, but there has to be something we can do. Well, there is. There are things that we can do to prevent heart disease. The first step, and the most difficult step, is realizing that there are tangible things that we can reduce or remove the risk of the disease. There are 3 basic rules that we'll want to talk about. Eat proper, diet that is low in fat and cholesterol. Take 10 minutes a day to exercise. That's all that you ask, is 10 minutes a day to exercise. And lastly, and most importantly, you have to stop smoking. As complex as heart disease may be, there are simple things that we can do to stop it or prevent it. We've talked about what the heart disease is. We've talked about what goes on in the United States. We've talked about how it affects us personally. We've talked about what we do to cause heart disease, and we've also talked about what we can do to prevent heart disease. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States. I want you to understand that. I want you to know how it works, and I want you to know what you can do to prevent it. I thank you for your time.